Welcome to ProKitchen University, an online video tutorial series, version 11. This video is part of the Mac Native Interface series for Mac users only. Welcome to the Cathedral Ceilings Part 1 video tutorial. In this video, we will create each available cathedral shape and address cathedral ceiling pitfalls and how to avoid them. If your customer has a cathedral ceiling, it is a really nice finishing touch to add one within your ProKitchen design, allowing you to provide an even more true-to-final product 3D rendering to the client. ProKitchen software allows you to add this visual component to your designs via wall attributes. It is important to know that when you are creating a cathedral ceiling in your room, that it is to only be created on a single wall within the design, and it must be created on one of the two walls that will hold the highest peak of the ceiling. For instance, my north and south walls will hold the slope of the cathedral. My east and west walls will hold the highest peak of the ceiling. So the cathedral shape must be created in either the east or west walls attributes. There are two ways in which to access a singular wall's attributes. The first method of accessing wall attributes is through the right-click toolbox. Or, you may double left-click the desired wall to bypass right-click menu access to immediately launch the Attributes dialog box. Locate and select the Cathedral tab to the left. Here, you will be able to create a cathedral ceiling for this room. By default, none is selected, and will render in 3D as a standard planar ceiling. Slope is a ceiling with a single peak. Shed will create a ceiling with two peaks, and Gambrel will create a ceiling with 3 peaks. Let's start with the first option, slope. Once selected, below will appear the cathedral parameters, where you will need to enter 2 parameters to build this ceiling shape. Vault position refers to the distance from the left adjoining wall to where the peak of the ceiling will sit. The easiest method of measuring this distance to enter into this field is to measure from the left adjoining wall along the floor to directly below the peak point. Vault height refers to the height of the topmost peak of the ceiling in relation to the top of the adjoining wall height. So if the adjoining wall sits at 96 inches and the height of the peak is 120 inches, the peak height will need to be 24 inches. As you adjust these parameters, the image in the preview panel will adjust to reflect the entered dimensions. Under the Cathedral Length section, you may choose to create the ceiling shape to the next wall, which is the wall opposite of the selected wall. Or, you may turn that option off by left-clicking the box to remove the checkmark. Then in the Specified Length box, enter the distance in which this cathedral ceiling will continue into the room. When selecting the Shed option, you will see that there are now 4 fields under Cathedral Parameters in which you may make dimension alterations. Now there are left vault and right vault positions, again referring to the distance from the left adjoining wall to the position of each peak. And there are also fields for both the left and right vault heights that will allow you to create a ceiling shape with 2 separate peak heights that may or may not sit at the same elevation. Again, as you change these parameters, the image to the right will change to reflect the entered values. Once again, you have the option to continue this cathedral ceiling the entire distance of the room, or to turn the option off and determine how far into this room the ceiling shape will continue. The Gambrel ceiling shape is created like the previous 2. However, now there are 3 vault positions and vault height values to be entered. Remember, when entering the vault positions, that each value is a reflection of where the peak will sit from the left adjoining wall. Also, like the previous options, you may adjust whether the ceiling shape will continue to the opposite wall or at what distance this ceiling shape will end. Once the cathedral ceiling has been created, left-click the OK button at the bottom right corner to apply. When we open the elevation view of the adjoining walls, we will see that there are additional areas in which we now can place windows and other architectural features. Adding skylights to your cathedral ceilings will be covered in Part 2 of this video series. Occasionally, you may run into some common pitfalls when creating a cathedral shape within the design. One common pitfall is attempting to create a cathedral shape for a single room within a multi-room design. Attempting this in a multi-room design, as traditionally drawn, may lead to a skewed 3D rendering and may not provide the cathedral shape you would like for a singular room. In this case, it may be best to separate your multi-room designs into individual room design files and create the cathedral ceiling for a single room. There is a slightly more complicated method for creating a multi-room design that has mixed ceiling shapes and is covered in Part 3 of this video series. Another potential problem may arise when you are attempting to create a cathedral ceiling with multiple cathedral shapes. There is really no good way to represent this design component, as the cathedral shape options and creation methods do have their limitations within the software. In this case, it is suggested to create a single shape that will serve as a best representation of the final product. With Pro Kitchen's cathedral ceiling options, you are now able to take your designs to a whole new elevation. Thank you for visiting Pro Kitchen University. Be sure to visit us at prokitchensoftware.com.